How y'all doing? Hope everybody good. Wanted to drop in, give y'all a quick little video. Today's video, I want to talk about some books that have helped me along my journey. We're talking about money, business, self-help, history, a little bit of everything today. And I'm going to really try to emphasize ones I feel like was a game changer for me. And jumping straight in, I'm going to go with the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the Cashflow Quadrant. And the reason I want to start here is because that was the first book I read that sort of kind of, well, the first two books I read that sort of kind of shifted my mindset when it comes to money. Like, I come from a family where as long as you have enough to pay your bills, you good. And I just always felt like it was more out here. And these books sort of kind of confirmed it when we talking about learning about the cash flow quadrant, different ways people make their money and ways you should want to make your money. And we're talking about assets and liabilities and other, you know what I'm saying? That was sort of kind of like my intro to financial literacy, I feel like. And it sort of it made sense to like what I was seeing in my real life, and like, okay, what else is it out here? And that, it just sort of kind of showed me. And obviously Robert Kiyosaki is pretty controversial, but I feel like a lot of these money dudes are. But I feel like we can learn something from all of them. Like, you ain't gotta take everything they say as a grain of salt, but it's something to learn from all. And I definitely with reading these two books definitely helped me change my mindset a little bit. Going with my next book, I'm going with Loper, The Side Hustle, How to Turn Your Spare Time into $1,000 a month or more. And the reason I'm going to shout out that book is because that helped, not just the book, but his whole brand, his website, and his podcast, The Side Hustle Show. That helped me start my first business when we're talking about high-ticket drop shipping. I was listening to one of his podcast episodes. But the reason I'm talking about the book is because it got my wheels rolling when we're talking about being actionable and actually taking steps. I had to go make more money. A lot of times where you just go get another job, but you can go out and start a side hustle and scale it up to a real business. And I think that's pretty powerful. And we talking about starting out making an extra $500 a month or extra $1,000 a month. That might not seem like a lot of money, but that adds up. That's a car payment, or that might be somebody's rent. You know what I'm saying? Just keep scaling up from there. And like I said, the main thing is his whole brand helps you actually be practical and go out and take action. Once you get the mindset down, okay, you start get your mind shifting. Okay, let's go take some action and actually go make more money and go put some of our discretionary income from my job into side hustles and scale those up to real businesses. So I like his whole brand. Like I said, it had my wheels rolling, had me take some action. Next book I'm gonna go is the Emyth Revisited: Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. And the reason I'm going to go with this book is because it helped me understand that most businesses fail and also understand the system. So with me understanding that most businesses don't work out, it made me want to go even harder in my business. And, a lot of people don't realize, like, with social media, I feel like a lot of people don't realize most businesses fail. And once you realize that you should want to go, if you realize the percentages is already against you, you should want to go even harder in what you got going. And also understanding systems and standard, how to run a business, and having standard operating procedures set in place so you can have employees. And we're talking about selling your business, so you can sell, the person you sell it to can understand different things. So sort of kind of like open my eyes like how a business is supposed to be run. And I need to reread it. But if you are, like, say, a person, you got a business or you thinking about getting a business, I think it's a good read for everybody if we're being honest. And then when we're talking about selling a business, Built to Sell by Warrillow, it's a story about how you had this business owner and he ended up, like I said, I need to reread a lot of books, but basically he had to, take some steps to have his business set up to where he could sell it down the line. And the reason I put this one is because I didn't even know you could sell a business. Like, I thought you just start a business just to start and you good for nothing. But you have people that get in the business and they've been at it for been in the business for years, and then they set up to sell for these huge exits. Like, I didn't even know, that was a thing. So that really opened like, damn, what's a whole nother world out here. And just a small example in my personal life, like when I had my business, I could never get it profitable. I ended up selling it for a small amount just to get some money out of it. But the person I sold it to, he was a seasoned online business owner, and he bought it for $2,000, sold it for $25,000 in a matter of like 6 months. So just showing you, like, just having the knowledge and understanding, like, it's a whole nother world out here. And that leads to my next book of like the Exitpreneurs Playbook. So like this is more catered to like the online business space, how to sell your online business for top dollars by reverse engineering your pathway to success. And it's sort of kind of like just a step by step of how to have your business set up. When we talking about accounting and we talking about different things, and like I said, this one is particularly catered to online businesses. But I shouted out those two books because before I started my business, I really didn't know people was out here selling businesses, and realizing the money you can make off of selling a business is crazy. Like you have people that are making life-changing money off of even not just the online space, but just in general off of these huge exits. And I think that's something we really need to be aware of in our community, because I think a lot of us don't realize that people actually sell businesses and the money behind being able to sell a business, how much more you'll make. Then I'm going to go with Newport, Deep Work. And I'm going to shout this book out because it really helped me understand how to do like real focus when you talking about schoolwork or working on your business. Like I think focus is a rare skill to have in today's world. When we have these phones and these devices, you get distracted so easily, and that helped me because I used to be a person where I might be doing some work and I'm working on my phone, and then I check Instagram, and then 5 minutes later I'm working a little bit, and then I go check the group chat. Now look, there's been 2 hours, I ain't really got nothing done. So when I really learned how to get deep work and really focus on my task at hand, I started to realize how much more work I was able to get done with that. And I just like Cal Newport, his whole brand. Like I might show another book at the end of his, just like really getting back to real work, learning to focus, learning to get off these social media, learning to be useful with the technology. I think that's really powerful. Next book I'm going to shout this book out because I think it's pretty cool. Savings and Trust, The Rise and Betrayal of the Freedman's Bank by Justene Hill Edwards. And the reason I think this one's pretty cool because, for one, the Freedman's Bank is just cool in general in the sense of it was one of the first financial institution. It wasn't black owned, but it was aimed to help black people. And we're talking about it was a bank that was created for the freed people, and ended up going under. So it had a sad ending to it. But the reason I say it's cool is because I think it's a history that a lot of us don't really realize there was a Freedman's Bank. I don't think I learned. I feel like I've heard of it before the book, but actually learning the story behind it and all the little details and why it was created, I think that's cool. Because in the South, being from the South, we hear a lot about slavery, but you don't hear about. I think this was one like swept under the rug a little bit, like some history that we just really not familiar with. So I think it's a really cool read. If you ever get a chance to read that. Next one I'm going to go with is The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I need to reread this, but I want to say I read it early last year. But I think it's a cool read because it goes in with a lot of what's going on today when we're talking about Venezuela and, how not just America, but some of these countries are bullies in the way that they trap these smaller countries into being like, what's the word, a puppet, you know what I'm saying? Being able to do what they want and getting the resources from them and things that, and it like just the beginning of, which I'm trying to learn more of, like I guess you could say geopolitics, and how the IMF, not like I said, not just America, but all these larger countries can be bullied sometimes. So I think that's a cooler read, and it sort of kind of correlates to a lot of what's going on today. I'm gonna go with the Bogleheads Guide to Investing. The reason I'm gonna go with this one is because this one was a good read for me, like with just trying to learn, which like I said, I'm a beginner investor myself, but just trying to learn the basics of how to get started with the stock market. It knocked a lot of confusion out. Like a lot of times I hear with people that say they want to get to stock market, they're like, it's just too confusing for me. So I think this is a good start right here of like, your regular everyday person trying to get started with the stock market, and like what's a stock and what's a bond, and just getting the little what's the word I'm looking for? Learning the basic definitions of it, and then how to actually practically get started and what to invest in and why you should be investing in things of that nature. Like it's sort of, like I said, it knocks out the confusion for somebody just looking to get in. So I think that's a good start right there. What's the next one I want to go with? And then for somebody looking to get started with Bitcoin, and not a couple of these, but I like the Genesis book. It sort of kind of shows you the reason why Bitcoin came about, going back to the early 1900s and the 1950s and 60s with the rise of the internet, and then the rise of need for a decentralized digital money. Then I'm gonna go with this book as well because it's a pretty cool read, Digital Gold. Another, like, going back to the beginning of Bitcoin and how things that happened in the beginning shaped then why it could be a good store of value for somebody that's interested. You know, I feel like I always say, going back to the origin of things, knocks out a lot of confusion, makes things more clear. And then this the last book I'm gonna shout out. And hold on, I'm gonna shout out one more Bitcoin book. This one as well, the Bitcoin Standard. And the cool thing with Bitcoin is you're learning how the history of money works. Like, what you're learning throughout history, what's been good money and why was it good money and what did people use as money throughout history. So this one starts there as well. And it's a good, like I said, a good intro book for somebody that's interested in getting into Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? A good read for you. Then the last book I'm gonna go is How to Get Paid for What You Know. I'm still reading this book currently, and the reason I'm gonna put this one out is because I feel like monetization is something in our community we need to be more aware of. And a lot of us are learning to monetize, how to learn to monetize a brand and not, but a lot of us just generally don't know. And a lot of times I see it is where a lot of us think just having followers and just being popular for somebody that's trying to, you know, build an online brand, they think once you get followers, the money's just gonna come with it. And a lot of times it don't work that way. Like, you see a lot of people where they have a lot of followers and they have this big following, but they don't really make any money off that following. So, you know, how to get paid for what you know, turning your knowledge, passion, experience to an online income stream in your spare time. And the reason I recommend this book is because, well, the reason I was reading it is because, okay, with starting the YouTube channel, obviously I'm gonna keep the main thing. The main thing was seeing, am I providing value for the family and friends, of helping them just with the basics as far as like budgeting, say getting started in the stock market, getting, you know, just basic knowledge and things of that nature. But behind it, on the back end, I want mine down the line being able to make a couple dollars off of it. And we talking about like monetizing the brand. So I think this could be a cooler read because, you know, you got a lot of people that want to make money on the online space. And I think the part that they forget is you got to actually make the money. So whether you're selling a product or, you know, learning how you're going to monetize your brand. So I think that's a cooler read too. Like I said, I'm halfway done, but I got a couple more chapters I need to read. But, you know, I ain't want to talk y'all heads out today. I read some books, just showed y'all some books I feel like was game changers for me that really stuck out to me. And, you know, I still read. I got a lot more books to read, but there's so many books out here. And like I said, that's sort of kind of like the foundation of information. You know, we got our phones now, and you could just really find out anything. But I feel like books is really going back to, you know, books was the real information before the internet and things of that nature. But, man, appreciate y'all, man. If y'all could, like, comment, subscribe. Truly appreciate y'all. Y'all stay blessed out there.